Hey, hi, how you doing? I'm Ryan Miller, co-designer of the Disney Lorcana trading card game. How you doing? I mean, if you're here, you must be doing kind of bad. I just want to encourage you to, I don't know, go outside. Maybe take a walk, smell the grass. It smells better than you remember. But this channel, it's not for you.
Oi, sunshine. This was a perfectly respectable channel before you turned up with your Mickey Mouse game design. Hello, Internet. Today we present another in our glacially growing game design series. We caught up with prolific card game designer Ryan Miller at UK Games Expo to ask him some of the best questions anyone ever has. You were part of a large company designing a game during the pandemic. How did that alter your workflow and your communication with your teammates?
Man. No one's asked me this before. That's amazing. So it was really interesting because I had been working as a freelance designer for about 7 years before I came to this project. So I've been working from home for 7 years before this. So to me, the biggest difference, I think, was collaborating over the internet, right? So we use Microsoft Teams, for example, at Ravensburger. And so having meetings on Teams and talking to people on Teams or Zoom, depending on who we're talking to, like getting used to that was definitely a shift. And then using like tabletop simulator and stuff like that to actually iterate on game design was the other difference, I think, was learning those platforms and then learning how to implement them. So I'm used to sitting down at a big table with white pieces of paper and like writing stuff and like let's iterate and play right now. And so kind of shifting to that, and it wasn't so bad actually. Once I learned the ins and outs, how to upload game stuff and put decks in there and stuff like that, it was definitely an adjustment, that's for sure. And then I missed going, leaving every day. Like I kind of missed that, right? And being creative too. I think you really benefit from being in the same room, like doing any kind of creative thing. I know it's not true for every job, but I think for creative jobs where you're collaborating creatively, being in the same room is just, there's no way to match it.
Over the years, you've worked with lots of well-known people in the games industry. Can you recall some of the people that had an impact on your game design philosophy and what the lessons they've taught you?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many. The first one that comes to mind is Luke Peter Schmidt, still a dear, dear friend of mine. He was in my wedding, actually. He was one of the trading card game designers from the early days, in the 90s. He worked on Legend of the Five Rings, worked on, oh gosh, so many games. Did a rework of Rage, had his own game, and I can see in my head, but I can't think of the name of it. Oh God, anyway, he's going to be mad at me, I couldn't think of it. But he really taught me so much about trading card game design. He and I designed the Warhammer 40K TCG together, and Warcry together. And he's one of those people that we just work so well together. We just have a very, it's like Steve Warner and I, we just have almost a language that we've made, and we just can kind of really work together. The other person that comes to mind is Andy Chambers. Now, Andy is an old Games Workshop guy. In fact, he's here somewhere. Just saw him, I went to visit him before I came out to the show because he lives in Nottingham. And he used to live in Seattle, and we would have monthly, we would just get together and talk game design. And he, of course, is just this veteran of tabletop miniatures gaming, and that's kind of one of my, I would love to design a minis game. I've designed a few, but nothing with big support or anything like that. And he actually taught me something really interesting. So I kind of have this feeling of I try to be too elegant with my designs, too smooth, right? And he really taught me. He said something to me one day that I never forgot. He said, the errors, or what was it? The imperfections of the Mona Lisa are part of why it's a masterpiece, right? And the imperfections give it texture, and they make it feel human. And I never thought about it like that. I'm like, you're absolutely right. And it's, so he really helped me get out of that phase. I was trying to make everything so elegant and streamlined and smooth, and it's like, actually fidgety is fun, right? Getting down to the nitty-gritty when deployed properly is fun. So there are more people. There's a guy named Bob Watts who ran, you remember Bob, yeah, just a beautiful man. He loves toy soldiers to his core. I love that guy. He taught me a lot about the business side of things. Ryan Dancy, similar guy, taught me a lot about the business side of things and just design in general. God, so many people. Yeah, it's hard to, lots of folks. I've learned a lot.
You worked with Games Workshop on several card games early in your career, a company well known for litigation and protectiveness of its intellectual property. Has that experience prepared you well for working on licensed properties?
Oh my, well, I mean, I think I'd actually worked before Sabretooth. I was a brand manager on licensed games for Wizards. I was a brand manager for the Looney Tunes game that we did, for the WCW wrestling game that we did. So I'd worked with licensors a few times before then. And it's always interesting, right? I get it, right? Like, as a licensor, you are the gatekeeper, and you are the one that has to make sure that your property is shown in the correct light. So I get it, right? And when I worked on with Games Workshop, they were actually pretty great. I mean, I got to work with John Blanche, for crying out loud. I mean, that was amazing, right? Rick Priestley helped me design the Lord of the Rings tradable miniatures game. I mean, I remember flying over there, just going, "What? How did I get this job? This is amazing." So no, they were actually really great to work with. And that game, we were the first game that allowed non-Games Workshop artists to do 40K art. It was the first time that had happened, and so it was a new process for them too, right? Getting that stuff approved and that sort of thing. And I think it worked. So I think it helped me because it helped me realize that it's a relationship. It's not dictatorship. It's not anything like that. It's a relationship. It's a back and forth. And that definitely has set me up well for working on other licensed properties, including Disney. Disney has been amazing to work with. They've been amazing collaborators on this game. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool. When you started in game design, there wasn't really any YouTube or social media. How is game publishing different today than it was then?
I mean, I think it's a lot easier now. I think it's easier to get eyes on your product now, right? I think when I was growing up, I never thought I'd ever have a game published, because I didn't even know, like, how do you even do that? What do you even do, right? There are more options now to bring your game to the world, right? Obviously, crowdfunding is the big one that comes to mind if you really want. That's one way that you can do that just wasn't available back then. Back in the day, you had to get a publisher so excited about your game that they wanted to put the money up front and put that game out. And that's still true these days if you want a publisher to publish your game. But now you have these other options. You can also self-publish. There's several, like Drive-Thru RPG comes to mind as far as a company that will publish your game. You can just self-publish it. So I think there's more options. There are a lot more games, though, right? So that's the downside. Is that it's internal is why we're doing it. Anyway, so the downside is, of course, there's a lot more games, but the upside is there's a lot more games. Like, it's an amazing time to be a game designer. But when I was coming up, it was definitely like you had to get on with a publisher. That was really the only option.
Has this social media also impacted the conversations you have at conventions? Do you find people are much better informed when they get to the booth?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I was actually talking to my wife yesterday. My wife's not a gamer, and so it's great to get her take on these kinds of things because she's kind of coming in fresh. But she was talking about, how do you come to a place like this and how do you decide where to go? And I said, well, most of these people have already done that. They've already planned, like, okay, we're going to hit this booth, we're going to get this game, we're going to go here. And I think that's absolutely because the conversation you can have with publishers is so much more available, right? You can figure out what they've got coming out, when they're going to come out with it, and it's just made it so much easier to connect, I think. So I think that that has been a factor, 100%.
For many people, being a full-time game designer is their ideal job. What can you say to help temper those expectations?
I don't like to do that. I mean, I think, if game design is your passion, I absolutely encourage you to get out there and go for it. I mean, I started in '98, right before the turn of the century, as a judge at the Magic Tournament Center in Seattle. Because I'm like, I'm just going to get any job I can with Wizards just to see where I can go. But the reason I did that is that I just wanted to give it a try so that if I looked back as an older man, I didn't regret not trying it out. So I mean, it is a lot of work. It is not an easy job to get, but I'm not going to discourage anyone from trying because it's great. It's a lot of fun, and to bring an experience into the world that makes people happy and helps them make memories with their friends and family, I don't think it gets much better than that. So I can't discourage anyone. If you have a passion for game design, or if you have a game design that you are passionate about, I absolutely encourage you to get that design out there. To show it to your friends and family, take it to the game night, do all that stuff, because it's not impossible. It's not impossible to get your game out, and it's more possible now than it's ever been. So I would love, I just can't, I couldn't discourage somebody. Do it. It's great. It's a great thing to do.
You're about to release a collectible card game in the middle of a global recession. Does that give you pause for thought?
Not really, no. I mean, I think, obviously, any business venture, you need to be thinking about those things. Luckily, I don't have to, that's not a large part of my job. We have much smarter people working on that side of things. But I think people need these kinds of experiences now more than ever, I think, to sit down with your family, sit down with your friends. Making those memories in person, I think, is such an important thing these days. There's so much out there to distract us. We carry something in our pocket every day to distract us, or that can distract us. I just love this idea, and so I think really there's a special place for games like tabletop gaming right now, and I think we see that in the market, right? I mean, there's just this huge upside. I've never seen so many games, so many gamers in my whole career, and it's amazing, right? So no, I think it's actually a really good time to get into gaming, and yeah, I think it's good.
Cool, magic. That's all of it.
I haven't felt a buzz like this since never came.
Wow.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Miller, brand manager and co-designer of the Lorcana